Claws of Awaji is the first DLC for Assassin's Creed Shadows, perhaps the only DLC, and I got to play it early. So thanks to Ubisoft for sending me a code and allowing me to share my thoughts with you guys. A few bits of background info. First off, you have to complete the entire game, including the epilogue, kill all of the targets to even access this. So this is, end game content. And also the team leading this piece of DLC is Ubisoft Bordeaux, who made Assassin's Creed Mirage, which had some really good parts to it in my opinion. Coming into this DLC, my expectations were that I'd see more Assassin Templar stuff because it really felt like the main game siloed that for the very final 5 hours with Yasuke. Maybe they would build upon that foundation that was laid at the end, and unfortunately that's just not the case. Claws of Awaji is more Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you played the main game and enjoyed that, I think you'll enjoy the DLC. If you didn't, then I don't think you're going to enjoy this. The plot picks up after the epilogue where you learn that Naoe's mother, Tsuyu, is alive and she's a real assassin. She was part of the foundation of the Brotherhood in Japan. You team up with her to locate the final piece of the regalia, those 3 pieces that are supposed to preserve peace, and it's assumed that these are pieces of Eden, right? They're powerful objects that are sort of the MacGuffin of the Assassin's Creed franchise, but you never get to see them. There are multiple times where the sword is in the scene, but I'm like, open the freaking box. Let me see that really cool sword. It doesn't happen. The big bad in this DLC is named Yukari, and she leads the Senzoku Ippa, which are the new Templar outfit. And so it's sort of like, they serve the Templars underneath it all, but really they're just another faction from the game. They're another one of those objective board wheels that you remember from the main part of Shadows. Don't get me wrong, they do say the word Templar, and they do at times talk about how, the assassins are the ones who are delusional. The Templars really, in actuality, want peace. But it didn't capture me. It felt like a lesser version even of the final 5 hours of the main game where it really kicked into overdrive with how evil the Templars are. I didn't really feel that in this DLC. Let's take a detour and talk about some positive stuff. And my positive things are very similar to the main game. I enjoyed the gameplay of this DLC. The fact that it is stealth first and the new weapon, the bow staff for Naoe, is really fun. It's got its own entire skill tree, which you can invest mastery points into. You can knock people down and do a ground attack. You can hit them up high, which stuns them, or you can just do a neutral attack, which pushes them away. It's a really nice combination weapon. It feels versatile and very powerful. I had a good time with this throughout the DLC. And then there's the beauty of Assassin's Creed Shadows, which in any Assassin's Creed game, Ubisoft games in general, can't be disputed. These are very pretty, gorgeous games where if you slow down and look at the scenery and take it all in, it's nice. It's great. It's incredible what they've built here. For the most part, for me, though, the environment is not much different from what you encounter in the main game on the main island. Awaji is obviously surrounded by water, so there's more, beach, there's more ocean. There's also some interesting brambles towards the center of the island and kind of north. Unfortunately, you just don't spend very much time going through here, and for the most part, you're just riding through on horseback, so it doesn't have as much of an impact as it might have otherwise. I've also really been enjoying the update that added 60 FPS cutscenes on PC, or unlocked frame rate. It makes them feel so much better and less disconnected from the rest of the experience. But man, the cutscenes, the facial animation, and the delivery of Naoe is still just not good enough. I briefly tried the Japanese voice just to see if that would switch things up, but that was actually worse for me because in my head, I already played the entire game in English voiceover, so switching that just didn't fix the issue for me. The faces in this DLC, they just feel plastic to me, and the lack of motion capture is very noticeable, and it just takes you out of cutscenes that might have had some weight otherwise. Perhaps the biggest issue overall for me, though, is the structure of this DLC, and you guessed it, it is just like Shadows, and it has one particular part that is really frustrating, and honestly feels like a mistake, like they forgot something or left it out or didn't think it through. Once you get to Awaji and sort of establish a base of operations, it's understood that you have to take down Yukari's 3 taishos. These are her capos, you know, the people sort of surrounding her and protecting her. Once you take out them, you can strike Yukari, get the regalia back, and you win. The first 2 are very normal affairs. It's just like the main game. You follow leads for these targets. The first one's the spy master. You're led down a rabbit hole, and then suddenly you find out who it is, and you take him out, and it's, you know, it's fine. It's pretty satisfying. And then you go after the ambusher. That one's a little more convoluted. And that boss fight, I have to give big kudos to UB Bordeaux for actually constructing an interesting boss fight that I think is better than anything in the main game. It tripped me up. It was fun. It had me thinking on my feet. It reminded me of Metal Gear Solid Delta, actually. It was really cool. And then you come to Tomeji, and Tomeji's thing is that he has a bunch of captains protecting him. And wouldn't you know it, the game says go and kill like 12 of these captains in order to take him down because he's too strong otherwise. Go and kill 12 targets that you really don't care about. I was already kind of prepared for that in this DLC, right? But the problem is the game only tells you one thing about how to locate them on Awaji, and that's to help citizens. These are the NPCs that will sometimes be on the sides of roads outside of towns who are kind of on their hands and knees and being assaulted by, you know, an enemy guard, right? These are the citizens they want you to find. How do you find them? Good luck. You're just going to have to figure that out on your own. You would think that the game would use the scouting system where it gives you some clues about where someone might need some help, but no, it doesn't. I was able to find several different ways of finding citizens to locate these captains on the map. The first one is what we just talked about. The second one was running into enemy camps and stirring up enough trouble until the game says captain has been alerted. Then the captain will come as a sort of boss, kind of like the guardian system in the main game. But that also doesn't necessarily work every time. I would run into camps, cause trouble, and then no captain would be alerted to my presence. The third way is that there are some unmarked side missions that you just have to walk by and overhear in order to know that they exist. The first one is in Sumoto, which is the first town that you arrive at in Awaji. You talk to this woman who's selling puppets and says, "I'm missing a puppet." And then you can eventually find a vendor, buy that puppet, and bring it back to her, and she'll give you some intel. I'm sure there are some more unmarked quests like this, but I hope I'm painting a good picture of this, because there is a certain point that you will hit in this DLC where any sort of momentum narratively grinds to an absolute halt because this game doesn't tell you where to go to find these captains. You're relying on the randomness of finding these citizens who need your help. By the way, sometimes citizens are being harassed. I did help, and then they would just scream and run away. This became very similar to the frustration I felt towards the back end of the main game, where you are hunting down these targets on the target board, and you're using the scout system, which is just dreadful. Every time you're trying to find something, you have to open the map and use this scanning little mini game to find what you're looking for. Eventually, I did kill, I want to say 8 of the captains before Tomeji was finally alone. The quest told me that he was alone, so I was able to progress the main story. This brings me to another issue that I have with this DLC. I will say that the game does warn you, but I still don't think it makes sense that they did this. The boss fight here is tuned for Yasuke. Even the NPC beforehand says, this guy's an expert against Shinobi. But they know that you're going to play as Naoe. Naoe has the bow staff. There's a reason Naoe is played more by players. She's more interesting. Tomeji is just a bad boss fight. There's no other way to say it. He's tuned ridiculously on normal difficulty. He two-shots you with unblockable combos, and also this area of effect Kanabo attack that just blows, man. I ended up turning down the difficulty, and I never do that in games. So I died enough times to this boss fight where I was like, no, I'm done. I'm good. I think it was built up frustration after the captain's nonsense. I'm not allowed to show you the final boss fight, but same thing there, guys. Really overtuned. And I understand that this is endgame DLC. They want you to min-max your RPG build in order to defeat the enemy. But I'm finding that one-shot hits where I have full health is not the kind of experience I expect from Assassin's Creed. But I just jumped ahead. Let's go back for a second. For the final target, you go back to chasing down leads and talking to NPCs and preparing for the final fight in a very normal sort of way. And it just struck me how strange that weird stop point in the middle of this DLC was with the captains. Which, by the way, I was having so much trouble that I had to ask a fellow creator reviewing this game, this DLC as well, like, how do you find the captains? How did you get around this? He said that he talked to other creators and they had the same problem. So yeah, I just find this a symptom of the design flaw in the main game, which has been around for years with these larger RPG creeds, which is the Where's Waldo? Hunting down targets you don't care about with names, with tiny little blurbs in the description that have nothing to do with anything. I think the most cynical viewpoint you could have for this choice is that it pads the runtime. There's more game because of this random chicken with your head cut off hunt where you don't know where you're looking for these targets. The only real marketing we've seen for Claws of Awaji always makes sure to say that it's 10 plus hours of content. I think if they did not have this section, it would probably be 8+ hours of content. It takes a solid 2 hours to do this part, and it's not a fun 2 hours. It really degrades the whole thing and exhausts you. The more forgiving read on this decision is that it just follows the same game design principles as the main game, which then you could probably say, okay, they did that as well because it pads the runtime. I feel like I'm being too negative, so I want to highlight a few things positive that I did write down in my notes as I played this DLC. There's a few missions that allow you to put on a disguise and blend in. There's one non-combat mission that I found particularly interesting where you have to walk around and gather some clues to find one of your targets. That's the stuff I want. That's cool. There were also a surprising amount of tailing missions, which I know some of you are going to listen to that and roll your eyes until they fall out of the back of your head. I love that stuff. It makes me feel like an assassin. There were a couple of those in this DLC. When I saw them, I was like, yes, please, and thank you. I also enjoyed the little parkour routes that they created. There's 2 of them that I remember where they lead you through an interesting environment, and then at the very end, you do a sumie, which it's not my favorite thing in the main game either, but in this game at least, you don't have to like stalk an animal. It's just a landscape. So now he stops and draws a landscape of an environment, and there's some cool spots. Briefly, during the Spy Master part of this narrative, there's a really cool mechanic where if you use your scouts to scan the map, that same area will be on high alert and random people will start attacking you if you run through the area. That is cool stuff, but the game removes that mechanic immediately once you defeat the Spy Master, which like narratively makes sense, but that's the first one that they recommend you do, so you're getting rid of this cool new mechanic immediately. And I just didn't understand the thought process behind that. Another little update thing I enjoyed, not related to the DLC, is that they allow you to keep Naoe's hood on during some of the cutscenes, but it's kind of weird that it's not all of them. Like some of them are required story, maybe motion captured scenes where they don't let you do that. And the fact that they do in some scenes and not in others is kind of jarring. I rolled the credits on Claws of Awaji and kind of took a deep breath and calmed down. And then I went back to your main base of operations in Awaji, found an NPC who once again gave me other objectives to take down more faceless, nameless targets. You could consider it the epilogue to this DLC. It's hunting down the rest of the captains that I didn't kill. It's hunting down some random guys that I didn't know existed beforehand, but now are still threatening the people of Awaji. And look, if you love Shadows and Claws of Awaji is something that's going to extend that experience for you, I'm sure you're glad to keep doing this. This is what you wanted more of. I am on the complete different opposite side here, obviously. I was like, no, you can miss me with that. I ain't going to do all that. Claws of Awaji ended up just reminding me moment to moment of the things that I didn't like in the main game, the things that didn't work for me. The fact that this world somehow is smaller than Valhalla and Odyssey, but is still exhausting. There's too much ground to cover. There are too many faceless, nameless NPCs that you talk to for 5 seconds and never again who don't matter. The narrative is incoherent and hard to follow because you're bouncing between regions so quickly you never spend enough time in one place and there's not one plot thread to tug on and follow the whole time. It gives you that feeling of, wait, what did I just do? Who is this character and why am I doing this? And that's constant. It's perpetual. There are too many activities. That's something I didn't really talk about in this review. The shrines, the meditation. There are too many boring activities that you do over and over again and get nothing out of it, the nth time that you've done it. The way the world and the road and the forests are set up is also frustrating. Very rarely can you actually cut through to your objective. You have to take a road, and because there are so many mountains in this DLC, sometimes you take the wrong road and you're going in the wrong direction. So I have to use the guided assist in order to get me to where I want to go. It's just stuff that blows my mind, and I know that people enjoy this. They keep making these games for a reason in the way that they make them, but I just don't. I really don't. This is going to sound arrogant, but I'm going to say it anyways because I feel so strongly, and this DLC reminded me of what's wrong with Shadows. Assassin's Creed needs to return to the cities. It really does. It needs to be a city-focused game where there are very detailed environments that all take place within a living, breathing city where there are hundreds of NPCs that you can interact with and blend in with. All of those map marker activities like shrines and such, just give me like 25% of the amount that you're giving me and make them more interesting. Have them hold my attention, not just as like window dressing in a very static, boring feeling world. Where going from one end of the map to the other end of the map doesn't take that much time, but it's dense, it's packed. It's not about riding your horse for 8 minutes to get to the other side of the map. It's about parkouring across the frickin' city to get to your objective. It should be about finding the location of the sword, of the part of the regalia, and returning it to its rightful owner so there can be peace in Japan, but protecting it from the Templars so they don't know where it is in the modern day. Like, we're missing a layer, man. We really are. And even I understand that modern day is not returning to how it used to. The Desmond thing, that is long gone, and it's a pipe dream to wish for it to return. But this way of hunting down like 50 to 100 targets, it's definitely more than that. It's 100 plus targets that you just don't even know. There's like very little context. You just know it's a bad guy. That's gotta go, man. We need like 10 targets max, and you really get to know these people. You follow them, you study them, you understand why they're evil and why they're bad. I like that Shadows returned to the target hunt, but they just did it wrong. There are way too many targets, and how could you expect anyone to care about it? Simple answer, man. You don't. You can't. Yes, I know I am the old man yelling at the cloud, but I'm gonna keep on doing it because that's what I believe. Anyways, that is it for this review. I hope at least you got something out of that. I hope that was helpful and not just a big long rant. That's what I felt about Claws of Awaji. Again, Ubisoft is always so kind about providing access even when you're negative, so I really appreciate that. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to hit that like button. I'd appreciate it. Also, sub to the channel for more videos like this and ring the bell so you don't miss my next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.